I'll correct you later.
I want to thank our host.
I told him last night, he introduced me, I said, this sounds like AI written material. The little, he has done this, he has done, let's say he's helped to contribute to the ongoing work. This little one.
See, the communications minister is showing me how to do the communication. But also I should mention, this is true, I know. Every year, Anuttama Prabhu goes to the American Academy of Religion because we go there and...
I go there because he goes there and he pays for the room. And I get to stay for free. That's the way I go.
Well, I go there because he's there. That's right. So I also wanted to thank our hosts, Jitendra Prabhu and Sabita Mataji, for so lovingly every year inviting us in the home and having this wonderful festival. Let's give them a big Haribol. And their son and daughter who are here somewhere. Yes. Jitendra Prabhu is a wonderful pillar of the temple. He is so assisting the construction and so many aspects of the temple. And he's there every single weekend. You can go there and you'll find him there with his family. Hare Krishna.
This is a very special community because very few do you get a violin and a drummer that knows how to play. You get a lot of people to pick up the drum and then they take off, however the Lord inspires them. Regardless of what the harmonium's doing, the singer's doing, but they're just, they're in their own bhav. But he's in a very nice bhav, but he's in a coordinated bhav. That's the best kind. Madanga teacher, so he's teaching others to follow in that. Very good. So there'll be future generations of cooperative Madangas in Naperville. That's good to know. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pecharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschachari Satarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Hariva, Gaur Hariva. Nitai Gaur Hariva, Gaur Hariva. Nitai Gaur Hariva, Gaur Hariva. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Mo. Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So can we maybe move this down? Thank you. So it's nice to be back here in Naperville and Aurora and all the other suburbs. spent some time in Indianapolis recently, and I can say you have a big advantage over Indianapolis. You have similar subdivisions and suburbs, but in Indianapolis, I learned you drive 10 miles through a cornfield and then you find a subdivision. And then you go another 10 miles through cornfields, and there's another subdivision, and then another cornfield, and then another subdivision. Here it's easy. It's subdivision, subdivision, subdivision. No confusion. The cornfields are way over there, So I was really surprised. I couldn't believe it, because they drive, you go through cornfield, think, okay, we must be on the edge of the city. And then you come to some, subdivision. There's a lot of nice houses. And then you go through another cornfield. And I was thinking, I need some geography lesson to figure this place out. It was very different. So it's nice to be back here. I was also thinking when I was in high school, any high school students here? Just 2? Only 2? Okay. 3. Okay. So a few. Most of us, we all were there at one point in time, right? I was in choir, but we never had drums like this in choir. Sometimes they had drums like this, but it sounded like a choir, a very beautiful choir. Actually, it's interesting because almost everybody likes to sing, right? Everybody probably has at least one friend or family member who can't hold a tune, but they love to sing, isn't it? So it's like it's a very natural inclination. And we understand that Krishna is so kind in this age. He came as Lord Chaitanya just to give the essence of spiritual practice in this age is described as chanting Krishna's names, which of course we do on beats, but also in kirtan is a very important part in singing. Like Prabhupada said, chant, dance, and be happy, right? He didn't say fast, suffer, and and merge, right? That's not our process. And of course we understand from Shastras in the past, even in some of the other traditions, there's stories of great saintly people who, right, the Christian first 100 years or so, the desert fathers, they gave up everything, lived in the desert because they had some, spiritual insights, some spiritual visions, some spiritual convictions. So they lived very austere lives in an effort to try to understand God. So our process is a little different. You can live in Aurora. You can have a nice house with skylights. And you can have nice soft carpets and invite friends over and have wonderful food and make spiritual progress. So Krishna has done that because he realized it's described in the scripture. The sage of Kali, anyone who doubted, take a look in the newspaper just one day and you'll be convinced this is the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. Or look at your phone, check the news, whatever your source is. Of course, these days, age of quarrel, you have to wonder, is any of this true? Right? That's so much hypocrisy is there, so much confusion. So of course people polish it in different ways. But, it's a very difficult time. It's a very difficult age. People are very disunited. We can see, especially in the last few years, so much polarization around the world. So much hatred, so much violence, so much antagonism. Even the very things that promise us happiness, sometimes they lead to the most complex problems. Like we know everybody here, probably anybody who's 3.5 years older has a phone, right? You have to have a phone, and and if you have to have a sophisticated phone. Mine's 4 years old, and I never tell anybody these days because they're like, "What? Why are you living in the dark ages?" You're like that. We got my wife's. My 2004 Prius finally more or less quit, so I got her 2006 Prius, which is no problem. We got her a 2019 Prius, and the book is this thick, So it was a work of great technological expertise that when she dropped me off at the airport, I was able to figure out how to adjust the clock. I told her, I said, I got to catch a flight. She said, no, you can figure out the clock. I said, I don't know if I can figure out the clock, It's 3 pages, how to change the clock, So, so there's lots of bells and whistles, as is described, but it doesn't necessarily make life happier, really. I mean, almost everybody here but me is born in India, so the common, I don't know if you still talk about it these days, but I used to hear for years, some people would move back to India because you come here and you're very successful. Maybe the husband's working, the wife's working, there's lots and lots of money. But in India, maybe there's not a lot of money, but somebody else did the laundry, somebody else cleaned the house, somebody else did the cooking, somebody else drove the kids to school, somebody else did the shopping sometimes. Right? You come here, you like got to bump through the aisle. There's like multimillionaires next to you. Like, excuse me, I was going for that cauliflower. That's mine first, right? So with all the technology problems come, of course, social media, there's just so much research has been done and the difficulty it causes. So at least enough that it should be impetus for everyone to think about, is this actually the way of progress? Technology and material progress is good, it's valuable, it helps us in so many ways. But can it, in and of itself, actually help people be happy and solve the problems? Because for every situation where technology is solving some difficulties, some complexities that come with it. So it's enough to make us pause and think about, is maybe there's something missing in modern society, And like I remember when I went to university as an undergraduate and took a couple courses on, well, even though I was in high school, took my first class on religion. I had no interest in religion really, but a lot of friends were there. But I remember there was we studied all of a sudden people that were asking things like, where does desire come from? And for me it was like, where does desire come from? Nobody ever asked that question. For the first 11 years of my education, it was all about how to get an education to satisfy and gratify your desires. And if there was any discussion, it was about which desire is going to get you further ahead. But nobody even questioned, where does desire come from? So I remember reading Simple Introduction to Buddhism, where Lord Buddha talks about desire is the cause of suffering. It's like, whoa. They didn't tell me that in science class, right? Nobody asked those kind of questions. So we understand human form of life is actually meant to inquire about these questions. Prabhupada says so many times in the Shastras, the animals eat, we eat. The animals have families, we have families. They have societies, some of them very sophisticated societies. They have their own technologies, how to build nests and how to build beehives and how to survive the winter. And so we do these things too, but we have this unique ability to try to ask, why am I here? Where did I come from? Why is there suffering in the first place? Why do I have to grow old? Why do I have to die? Human life is meant for that. And there's many, many different people that come, great sages and saints and people that inspire those thoughts. But we understand that's really the most important part of human life. And if people miss that, our acharyas, they say, actually it's not human life. You can be a multi-billionaire. Right? There's a few of those these days. You can be so influential, but if you don't know why you're here and where you're going to go next, then you wasted your life. It's a heavy expression, wasted your life, but that's ultimately the view there. I was going to read from the Bhagavad Gita, Yoga of the Supreme Person. Last night, a lot of us were here from last night. And that means the prasadam was really good. They came back for more. And we talked a lot about, the theme was kind of Prabhupada, so I thought today we'd read a bit from Bhagavad Gita. This is possibly the most important chapter, titled The Yoga of the Supreme Person. I was going to read the last 3 verses and the purport for part of the last verse. So I'll just read the English and then the Sanskrit for text 20. Krishna says, because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible, that's us, and the infallible, because I am the greatest, that's not us. He says, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that supreme person. Purusha Uttama, it's the word in Sanskrit. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is a knower of everything. He or she therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharat. Bhajati, renders devotional service, mam, unto me. So, Sanskrit for text 20, I'll just read it once. Iti yugatamam shastram idam yutvam mayanaga itad budva buddhi mansyat krita krityasta bharata. makes this bold claim. Bhagavad Gita is full of all these bold claims. Krishna is very bold person. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, knowing his position as the supreme person, and that one who knows that is a devotee. And it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. So, again, bold claim, endeavors will know perfection. Purport or commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Lord clearly explains here that this is the substance of all revealed scriptures. Prabhupada even goes further. He doesn't say Vedas, he says revealed scriptures. It's interesting. And one should understand this as it is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, one will become intelligent and perfect in transcendental knowledge. In other words, by understanding this philosophy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in his transcendental service, everyone can become freed from all contaminations of the modes of material nature. Devotional service is a process of spiritual understanding. Wherever devotional service exists, the material contamination cannot coexist. I'll skip a little bit for time. Everyone should take to this consciousness of Krishna and engage in devotional service to become intelligent and purified. Unless one comes to this position of understanding Krishna and engages in devotional service, however intelligent he or she may be in the estimation of some common man, they are not perfectly intelligent. The word anaga, by which Arjuna is addressed, is significant. Anaga, O sinless one, means that unless one is freed from all sinful reactions, it is very difficult to understand Krishna. One has to become free from all contamination, all sinful activities, then he can understand. But devotional service is so pure and potent that once one is engaged in devotional service, he automatically comes to the stage of sinlessness. Last paragraph. While one is performing devotional service in the association of pure devotees, in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. The most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of the heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. Thus one gives up the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord. The second weakness of the heart is that as one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. The problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart. So we know there's so many problems, right? The government's, I live in D.C., right? I mentioned the other night I flew from Washington to Chicago, and the TSA people are there all lined up, and it was a long line because they're overburdened right now. So I asked one man, I said, "You being paid?" He said, "No." Like, you know, he's the guy trusting to make sure that no terrorist gets on the plane with a bomb, and he's not getting paid for doing that. So it's like his goodwill that he does his job right? So it's like, okay. So as an example of a problem, that's a problem, but Krishna's saying all problems they're due to these weaknesses of the heart. All problems. Again, bold claim. In this chapter, the first 5 verses describe the process of freeing oneself from these weaknesses of heart. And the rest of this chapter, from the 6th verse through the end, discusses Purushottam Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person. Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namani Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gauravangi Vicharane, Namaste, Srimati Prasthaya. Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, just share a few thoughts, and we'll hopefully have time for some discussion. There was some new brahmacharis in the Chicago temple today. I was very pleased to point out to them during Mangalarti, looking through the ceiling. I said, "Prabhu, that's snow. Do you know what that is there? That's snow. Welcome to Chicago." So it's nice to be here. Thank you all. And actually, I was sitting there giving some thought to what I should say. And I was thinking, actually, it's quite remarkable that you're all here. You're all actually quite remarkable people. You should know that. because this is Sunday afternoon. I'm not sure. I don't watch these things so closely, but I think your football team's terrible this year. So that's okay. That's not a big distraction. So like it's not a big distraction. Okay. But still, there's so many things that you could be doing. It's a fact. And you all have friends that are doing things other than this. And maybe you even have friends you didn't even tell you're here because they would not understand, what are you doing? I'm sure some of the younger people's like, what'd you do on Sunday? Well, I hung out with my parents at a religious meeting. Right? They think you're crazy a little bit, right? But is that 7-year-old here who was here last night? Is he here? He's not here. So, was he your son? No. No, there was a very outspoken 7.5-year-old, he told us last night, who gave him the sauce, all the people that didn't appreciate what he was doing. So, so we may be like a little more bold in telling people what we're doing, we know. I'll share a story. This is a fun group. I like this group of devotees, but forgive me for revealing the uncouthness of my family heritage. But when I became a devotee, about 7 years into it, first my parents were like not so much inclined, to put it lightly. And a few years later, my parents came to visit me, was living in Boulder, Colorado. We had a small outreach center for students. It was a great place, very exciting. It had like 150 people came twice a week. We did Harinam 3 days a week and feasts and books. It was a really wonderful program. Well, my parents came and devotees, there was two of the ladies there at this little center, Rangavati Devi, who's still in Alatra, and Palika, I'm not sure where she is now, but she'd been one of Prabhupada's personal cooks. So they were good cooks. So my parents came and we like wined them and dined them, as they say. And those were the days. It was the first time I ever found, like, I don't know, Martinelli's sparkling apple cider. Like, you go to fancy events, people that drink, which a lot of people do in this country, champagne or different kind of wines, right? So we have like our kosher version, right, is Martinelli's. So anyways, Martinelli's and a really nice dinner. And at one point in time, it was a very nice evening. At one point in time, one of the ladies asked my parents, what do you tell your friends your son's doing? I just thought, oh no, it's been such a nice evening. I was like, shut up, don't have me. They were sitting here, I was sitting here, and the two ladies were there. My mother, who was just a very sweet lady, she just kind of like mumbled something and tried to say, my father was like what they used to call a 50s dad. They lived through World War I, they lived through Depression, and men are supposed to be tough and they don't show their feelings and rather outspoken and could be pretty heavy sometimes. But my father, he kind of dovetailed that tendency in his own version of Krishna consciousness, as you'll see. And again, forgive me for the harshness of the words, but I think you get the point. So my mother wasn't quite sure what to say. What do you tell your parents? And my father leaned forward and said, you want to know what I tell them? They said, yeah. I said, I tell them my son joined the oldest goddamn religion in the world. At which point I thought, wow, he really appreciates what I'm doing. So I say then in the sense that, this context, not everybody appreciates spending Sunday afternoon talking about God and is there a God and how to understand God and how to be spiritual and all that. And we were discussing over the weekend, and I was at the, Temple, Rogers Park, Chicago Temple, that it's true a lot of people, they kind of come in contact with spirituality through something else. Even our own Srila Prabhupada, his friend dragged him to see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He's a Vaishnava his whole life and all that. But anyway, that's the way the Leela kind of worked out. So many of us, it's not time to explore everybody's story here, but many of us were kind of like dragged into it, in a sense, right? And, somebody just told us, come to this party. The next thing you know, you're in the front, you're stuck. And they're reading from Bhagavad Gita. You thought it was a party, right? Or it's like you thought it was a party, and then it's like, there's no wine, there's no liquor, and, it's like, what is it? It's prasadam. It's what? It's what my grandmother had, right? But then it starts to all make sense after some time. And this is what's being discussed here, that our hearts, right now, our hearts are really distracted by materialistic conceptions of life. Every day you get up, you brush your teeth and you look in the mirror and you look, more or less change over time, but that's me looking out. And from the time you're a little person, people call you a name, and that's who you are. And even I have a memory of like being a young boy I was probably 6 or something, and driving with my parents to visit my aunt and uncle that had a cottage on a nice lake, and that was where we went and spent summers. I grew up in Michigan, spent part of the summer. And I have this memory, it's odd that it's stuck out of my mind, but of kind of getting out of the car, giving my favorite uncle a big hug, and one of the other male members of the family saying something to the effect of, don't worry, he'll get over that. It was like, you're a man, you're 6, right? But you're a man. Men don't do that. They don't show their emotions like that. It was just the cultural thing. Culture's very, in ISKCON, of course, we're like hug loka, right? Everybody hugs in ISKCON. But except sannyasis don't hug sannyasis. Men, it's okay. Ladies don't do it. But it was just, I mean, it's just because like you're molded into thinking of yourself as a certain way, certain type of person. You're a man, men don't do that. Or you're a young lady, young ladies don't do that. Or maybe you're Indian young ladies from India don't do that. Or, whatever, you're from Naperville, people from Aurora maybe do that, but people from Naperville, we don't do that. Whatever. We're impacted, our sense of identity and progress in life is molded much by the society around us. But Krishna Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is in the situation where he's realizing, okay, my role in society is to be a warrior, and it's not working out right. And, this is a big crisis. There's family on both sides. There's friends on both sides. And if I fight, if I win, I lose because I got to kill everybody over there. If I lose because everybody on my side loses. This is, in modern parlance, he said, this is a lose-lose scenario. And then Krishna explains the whole Bhagavad Gita, and starting out by explaining to him, it's lose-lose for everybody, Arjuna. Mantra sparshas tugunteya shitos nasukha dukkha. This is a world of mixed happiness and distress. We could take a poll here and ask, like, how many people are feeling happy today? Half of you would raise your hands. How many people feeling kind of unhappy today? Half of you would raise your hands. Tomorrow they'll switch, right? I saw some devotee at Chicago Temple and said, how you doing? He said, okay. I thought, that's the first honest answer I've gotten in a long time. It's how you doing? You want to know how my toes? My toes good today. My pinky's not feeling very good. My head's feeling okay, but my stomach's hurting. My everything in the family's great, but there's financial pressures, right? I just made up with a friend. We fought for the last year and a half, but my neighbor's being really nasty. I got a new boss. They're really, really nice for 3 days, but then they got laid off, right? Isn't it? It's the nature of the world. And generally people think, well, put the negative stuff away or take a pill. We live in a pill culture. Take a pill to deal with it, or have a drink to deal with it, or get the new drink. Get a therapist, can help you deal with it, or go to a movie, or, go away, escape it somehow or other. But spiritual life begins with, wait. Why? Why is this all happening? And is anybody else thinking about this world the way I am? Or am I the only one? And when we come across spiritually minded people, they're asking the same questions. Then it gives us this impetus. Okay, it's not just me. It's not just me that's asking these questions. That's wondering. And of course, it doesn't mean at all, bhakti doesn't mean at all that we stop our pursuits in this world. We pay our mortgages, and we buy a house so the kids can have a backyard, and we want to be in a nice neighborhood so they can go to a good school, and we save up money to put them through college, and all those different anxieties. But we keep in mind that this is just a temporary fix because we're moving through. And probably gives the example, simple example. If you're on a train or a bus, especially like in India where I'll have experience, it's a crowded situation and somebody's pushing you off the seat and this, that. You don't get upset about it because you're only going to go for a few miles. And what you're really thinking about is the destination. So while you're there, maybe if there's a seat, you sit down and in America, many of you maybe have to take subways to work or something. Okay, you read, you do this, you're on the train. You take advantage of the opportunity. But you're not going to stay on the train. It's a train, and its purpose is to get to a destination. So human life is like that. It's a vehicle. It's described. The body is a vehicle with a destination to take us someplace. And while we're in this vehicle, we should take care of the vehicle and other people and things that we're connected to. Be good neighbors, be good citizens, be good parents, be good kids. Be good students, be good employees, be good employers. We should be even better employees and employers and kids and parents than materialistic people, because we should not be driven by lust and envy and all the things that make life miserable. Because we're understanding first and foremost, we're servants of Krishna. And if we're servants of Krishna, means we're servants of everybody. If we're servants of everybody means we're concerned about their well-being. Isn't it? And it's not so much common these days. So in these purports, well, first I just want to remind everybody, just briefly, next year is the 60th anniversary of ISKCON. It's a big deal. You mentioned I've been here for 50 years by the mercy of Krishna only. So 60 years since ISKCON was formed in what city? New York, 1966. The year after that is the 50th year we marked the Tirobhav, or the physical departure of Srila Prabhupada from this world. So it's like back-to-back very important spiritual worlds. And as Gopal Hari mentioned, as far as the Prabhupada disciples, we won't be around for too many more parties. So the 60th, please make it a big one. You should think about 60izing in all your events. Whatever it is, Rath Yatra, Janmashtami, Radhastami, Gaur Purnima. It's the 60th annual anniversary of Gaur Purnima being celebrated in America. Certainly in Naperville, not that many years, but we're part of ISKCON. We're a small part of the international society, so it's an international festival. And it adds some authenticity because one thing sociologists of religion tell us that most religious organizations, they don't last more than a decade or two after the departure of the founder, because it all breaks apart. And we know there's tendencies that, even now we've got some little rifts here and there. But more or less, the organization globally, by Prabhupada's vision, this structure that he created is continuing to go on. So we're part of that bigger picture. Read the newspaper. What's the conclusion of the newspaper? Well, what's the conclusion of the latest, romance novel on the shelves? Well, the conclusion is that she lost the guy, but she's hopeful she'll find another one. Okay, well, that's not really the conclusion because it goes on. But Bhagavad Gita has a conclusion, which is explained in many places. But if you, I'm not a scholar at all, but from my reading the Gita, Krishna kind of goes back and forth. He talks about bhakti, and then he backs up. Then he talks about surrender, and then he backs up. It's like, well, actually, what you really should do is everything comes from me, but we'll talk about the modes of nature, and you really should surrender to me. But here's jnana yoga and all that. And if you don't read it carefully, like a lot of people will say, well, Bhagavad Gita, it's all about karma, it's all about jnana, it's all about the modes of nature, it's all about sometimes people say the book ends at 11th chapter. Krishna shows the universal form, and that's it, and everything else is secondary. But here, because we're blessed with the commentaries of the Vaishnava Acharyas, we understand actually the conclusion is bhakti, that we should connect with Krishna, the Supreme Person. We're individual persons. We should connect with him. And the only reason we're not is actually quite simple. We're not purified. And we have these described here, weaknesses of heart that are blocking us. We're kind of distracted. And Prabhupada gives an example that we're all like the son of or daughter of a very, very rich man. It's like, Jeff Bezos, well, I don't want to say illegitimate children, that wouldn't work. But, we're like Jeff Bezos's kids, and we forgot. We just forgot. We're wandering around. We're the sons and daughters of the wealthiest, most attractive, most influential, most famous, most powerful person in existence. And it's described by the Acharyas, we're wandering around in this world like lost children, like orphans. We don't know our connection. And it's interesting because we see that all around us. People are all looking for something, but they don't know where to look. And therefore, you read and people make light of it. And I remember it really, I wish I'd cut it out. It was a few years ago. There was a newspaper article I saw about, some very famous people, like the man that wrote Citizen Kane, did that movie. I don't know if that's too old for everybody here. Was a very famous film producer, and I forget his name, I'll remember later. And then some woman who was like a big movie star and considered the most beautiful woman of her era. And they talked about how in this article, they had died recently, both of them. And now, one of them died an alcoholic and a drug addict and this and that, and the other one was married like 5 times and married penniless. And it's like, really, you think like these people like had everything materially going for them. When it's over, it was over. And I was waiting for the conclusion. Like the last paragraph, you're hoping the writer's going to say, therefore, you all need to take up spiritual life. Because these people show us that this is like a dead-end street. But at the end of the article, the journalist actually said they certainly had ups and downs in their lives, and it was all down at the end. He said they certainly had lots of ups and downs, but what a ride it was. That was their conclusion. And I was thinking about all the poor people that read this article and think the goal is just right up and down on the Ferris wheel, Whereas thoughtful people, it's like, well, there's so many downs. Is that the only way? Is that it? Just like, again, something, certain things influences all of you. All have their own pillars, but I have the mic, so I'll share my stories. Bumper sticker, he who dies with the most toys wins. You ever seen that one? You don't see it so much now. It's big pop in the night. He who dies with the most toys wins. Great philosophy, huh? Very profound. Simple, very clear. It's very clear. Whoever's in your way, you step on them. Isn't it? Because whoever gets the most toys wins. So you do whatever is necessary to get the most toys. If you're the prime minister or the president of Russia, if Ukraine's in the way, you take it. If you're a certain company and there's somebody else that's competitive to you, you wipe them out. You need to. I remember my father, I already told one story, but I remember one time as a kid being really shocked because and this goes on, I have to understand, okay, my father's not the only person in the entire existence that ever did this or acted or thought like this. He was kind of proud to tell me as a son how there was a guy in his office he didn't like and more or less he ruined his career. I was like, wow. And I mean, my father didn't have like horns and big teeth, and he wasn't like Hiranyakashipu. He was just like another materialistically driven person who doesn't know what the goal is. He doesn't know what the goal is, And it's sad, but this stuff happens all the time. I mean, movies are made about this and books and all those kind of things. So Krishna is explaining here that we have to become purified or else we're distracted. So when our intelligence is telling us, okay, well, that doesn't seem like such a good path because at the end they lost everything. And, she was the most beautiful woman in the world, but she just shriveled up, or he shriveled up like a prune at the end. That's what happens. That's what happens to these bodies. They may be beautiful and powerful and strong and rich and famous, but they shrivel up. Sorry. I'm 70. I know a lot about shriveling up, first-hand experience. So Krishna is saying we have to become purified, and it's advised, associate with spiritually minded people, practice some kind of spiritual practice, and gradually we become purified. And the challenges are, as described, we have these petty weaknesses of the heart. So we need to develop some strength. Just like a few generations ago when Ronald Reagan was the president, there was big problems in this country with drug addiction, which just grew over the time. So she had something, just say no. And I don't know what the rest of their campaign was, but that was obviously pretty superficial. But in part, Krishna's helping us to understand we have to learn to say no to the distractions of the material world. But in bhakti, it's so beautiful because you take those same things and use them in Krishna service. There's other processes. Do you want to practice yoga? Okay, give up your house, give up your husband, give up your kids, go to the Himalayas, live in cold water, and it's in there. It's in the Shastra, right? Our process is take your big house, have a lot of friends over, make fancy prasadam, and develop love for Krishna. It's a lot easier, and help as many people along the way as you can. But it's a little difficult because there's so many influence on us that kind of encourage us, our mind and our senses and so many things. They encourage us to make different decisions. But I was thinking, we have to be a little analytical. And just like when you bought this house, where all of us, we have different, you sign a contract, what do they always tell you before you sign the contract? These days you try to, social media, right, online, they send you a 47-page contract, a little box, I've read it, right? Now, right, has anybody ever read those? we don't know what we're saying, what we're signing off to. You know, it's kind of like evil in one sense to make you sign this 37-page thing that, you know, I just did one yesterday. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but yes, you know. But generally, when you sign a contract, you read it, right? You know, and when they tell you, whenever you're going to enter into a legal contract, if you have an attorney or whatever, they'll tell you there's one little slogan they'll always say, which is, be sure you read the fine print. You have to read the fine print, or else you don't know what you're signing on to. I mentioned the other night, when I flew from D.C., I left early or late or something, no breakfast, no lunch, so I was at a drugstore actually the night before, and I kind of knew what was going to fly, so I bought a box of Nature's Valley, like, granola bars. Like, how can you go wrong with them? Nature's Valley, right? So on the plane, I offered them, and I'm eating it, and I'm just, you know, read the package one more time, and it said, contains bioengineered food. Smallest print in the whole package, you know. Way off to the side, you got to unfold 3 different things to find it hidden away. Bioengineered. So, like, read the fine print. I still don't know what it is. I don't think I want to know what it is, but I'm not going to buy that. I don't know what I consume. It's too late now, but I'm not going to buy anymore. So we have to read the fine print, right? When you sign a contract, you have to read the fine print. And I had experience with my wife, and I had a business for about 22 years in D.C., and I got in a couple situations where I didn't read the fine print. Like, I remember one time we you know, if you have a small business, they're always changing the technology. We know you go and you try to buy something at a store, you got to study for a minute and a half, what system do they use, right? Do I slide it? Do I poke it? Right? And it's like, do I just go up top? And the guy behind the counter is looking at you like, are you stupid? You know? Be like, well, I just been to 4 stores with 4 different systems, and they're all different, right? So we had a small business, and I remember we had one company where we signed up for this thing. It's a true story. We all have stories like these. It's like enough to make, like, Krishna, I thank you. I have to surrender to you because this place is crazy. So I called up. It's like, okay, you know, we have a new thing, and we're a new company and old company, and we'll handle all your credit card transactions for us. And I was like, well, okay, I'll try it, but, you know, I want to make sure I can get out of the contract in case it doesn't work. So, of course, you know, 1 month goes by, and it's like, you know, twice as expensive as what I had before. So I call them, and they go, well, we're sorry, we'll fix that. That's a mistake. So wait 1 more month. So the next month goes by, and I call back, and I don't remember her name, but Sue, who sold me the pack, she doesn't work there anymore. And somebody else works there. And they told me, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it, right? And I literally, the next time, I called back, and I'm talking to somebody. I'm not exaggerating. I'm talking to somebody. And they say, okay, yeah, well, I can see your point. This is definitely wrong. We'll take care of it for you. I need to put you on hold for a minute. You're going to think I'm making this up. I'm not making this up. They put me on hold, and they come back, and they say, who are you waiting for? And I said, I'm waiting for John. And John doesn't work here anymore. While I'm on hold, John, who just told me, I'm not exaggerating. I'm on hold, and they tell me John doesn't work here anymore. You know? And I hadn't read the fine print. Was like, if, you know, I didn't say this, but was more or less, if John gets fired, whatever he told you was not binding to this contract. You know, and it ended up costing us more money than it should have to try to, we didn't read the fine print. You know, I trusted him. I didn't read the fine print. So there's fine print in this material world. So we have to understand there's fine print. And a lot of times, you know, we don't think there's fine print. We get enthusiastic and think there's, you know, you go to buy something, they're like, it's fantastic, but you don't read the fine print. And you don't read what happens if it breaks down. They claim no responsibility if over X amount, it's your problem. Well, I assume I just bought it a week ago. If it breaks, then it should be your problem, not my problem. No, it's fine print. So in the same way, again, I mean, on a macro scale, on a small scale, Braj Bihari Prabhu, who teaches, he's the head of ISKCON Resolve and deals with conflict resolution, he says one of the major causes for conflict in this world is unmet expectations. So I get into something with certain expectation, you have a different expectation, it leads to conflict. So we need to make sure our expectations are right. You know, talk about marriage, a lot of problems in the marriage institution these days, and they always talk about you got to talk beforehand. You get married and he assumes she's going to make half the money, and she assumes she's going to stay home with the kids whenever they come, and she's going to stay home till they come and after they come. That's a problem. Neither one is right or wrong, but they didn't talk about it. Or, he assumes she's going to be really happy having the in-laws come and stay 3 months a year, and she assumes they're going to come on Thanksgiving and go home, right? That's a problem. They need to talk about it. And in a more serious way, you see in the paper every day, we're in a country where people are still trying to get here, and they pay people a lot of money to help them sneak into the country. Now, the current administration is trying to shut that down for better or worse. But it happens, and you read the story of those people. A lot of times those people, they give their life savings because they think they're going to get into the country. But a lot of times, they are horribly exploited and abused because they didn't know what the details were of the contract. And sometimes there's not very good people behind that. I just, on the dark side, I'm taking some training, ISKCON training about understanding trauma. It's called trauma-informed leadership. And they interviewed one young woman. I'm not getting into the details, but she was from an unhappy home, and she's hanging out at the mall and met some guy who promised her so much stuff, and she just got totally exploited for years. She's telling her story, how she got trapped, and because she wasn't aware of the fine print. He seemed like a nice guy, etc. So this world is like that. That's what Krishna is telling us. It seems like a nice place, but in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he says, from the topmost planet down to the bottom, they're all places of misery, isn't it? And we can understand that means on this planet, from the richest to the poorest, from the most educated to the least educated, there's misery there. And therefore, he's describing that gradually we should become Krishna conscious. And he's explaining that we have to do that. We have to give up this weakness of the heart. And it's interesting because the Vaishnava tradition teaches the spiritual realization means to become joyful. And sometimes it's like, well, you just slammed everything around us. How are you going to be joyful? Well, because you're joyful when you realize where the real joy comes from. When we're hanging on to things that don't bring us happiness, in the long run, they bring us difficulties. And if we're honest with ourselves, many of us will admit, I can admit this, I'm not going to get into it, but some of the things or people that I was most attached to that I thought were going to bring me the deepest joy, happiness, love, experience in this world caused me the most pain. Maybe it was the job you really thought you wanted, it was a terrible job, or whatever. Oftentimes that's it. The thing that gave us the biggest promise turned out to cheat us the most. Like with these refugees, we're going to take you to America, we're going to protect you, and you read about it. We'll put you in the back of a truck, close the door, and 27 people die on a highway in Southern California. Happens all the time. It's horrible. So again, a lot of people turn a page. I don't want to hear that. Like it's a few years ago, because I work with the media, there was a big push having good news. People complaining the news is too full of bad news. It's all about bad news, Like they say in the news industry, they say, if it bleeds, it leads. That's one of their mantras. If the story's something terrible happened, it's the lead story. So some newspapers, TV stations, I know for sure, they thought, we've heard from our people, they want to hear the good news, so we're going to be a good news station. And their number of people watching, their advertising ratings within weeks fell off the chart. Nobody wants to watch that because it doesn't bleed, and I don't want it to lead. So there's some weird thing about suffering. We're interested in suffering and almost enjoying other people's suffering. That's a whole other thing. But at least we can see there's so much difficulty in this world. So Christians explain we have to give up this goodness of the heart and just understand that it's really, the Acharyas describe it's actually, this world is a bad bargain. It's a bad bargain for us. And if you think about it, again, we live in America, so let's look at American values. If you become rich, you'll become happy. If you become rich, or to whatever extent, we know you become rich, you get more anxiety. Is it? Prabhu tells a story about the man that's in his home and he's praying, dear God. He says God has a very difficult job. He says the man's inside his house, he's praying, dear God, dear Krishna, don't let anybody steal anything from my house. Meanwhile, the thief's outside in the bushes, dear God, please help me steal from this house. So Prabhupada says, Krishna's job is very difficult. I didn't satisfy both those people. But it's true, I have a man's body, but I, observe things. It's a fact. If you're too beautiful, you get more harassed, even if you're beautiful, even if you're just a woman in general, right? Women have to be careful, right? There's a lot of not such good guys out there. I mean, in high school, I was shocked. Like some of the cutest girls are like, him? You know what he says when you're not around? You know what kind of consciousness this person has? And you're attracted to him because you think he's going to show you love and he's strong and he's cool and all that. So if you're beautiful, you get harassed. If you're powerful, if you're a powerful person, what does that evoke in people around you? Admiration by everybody? No. What happens? Envy. Envy. I want to tear you down. Isn't it? If even like in an ordinary sense, like you buy a nice house. We live in an apartment now in a nice townhouse. Like every time the wind blew, got to fix the roof. It's something. It wasn't the roof. It was a hot water heater. It wasn't the hot water heater. It was the back door. It wasn't the back door. It was the right. It's just, it's like this is the house of your dreams. Yeah, bad dream. I mean, houses are nice. I got a house, and I'm on the villages at Decoverly maintenance repair request. I know how to get there. I'm expert at that. I've had to do it so many times. It's just the nature of the world, You get a nice car, the more expensive car you get, the more expensive the repairs are. Isn't it? So it's the fine print. Nobody tells us that, Enjoy your new Porsche, but don't scratch it. Because our shop will cost you $3,000 just to fix a little scratch, Or please forgive this one, but children, they're wonderful. But what comes with children? Teenagers. Right? One time I heard a thing that said, grandchildren are the reward you get for not killing your teenagers. Isn't it? You got to hang in there. Keep hanging in there, right? It'll be okay. One day it'll come. One day it'll come. And, and other things too we see, like in this, live in this society, and they show, I flew through the Middle East a couple months ago, and, you go through and all the shops. It's amazing because years ago, I remember I was on a television program about Hare Krishnas bothering people in the airports by presenting books about God. And this one man who was there for the Federal Aviation Administration, he was saying airports are designed by experts to get you into the airport and out of the airport the most efficient, the least time-consuming way. These days, many of you know, if you've flown to India recently, you get off the plane, you get to customs, you can't find the baggage claim. Isn't it? It's like, that's the liquor department, that's the cigarette department, that's the perfume department. Where the heck is the baggage? Isn't it? Yeah, they make you go around and around and around. Like by the time you did the fifth turn, it's like, all right, I'll buy something. I don't smoke, I don't drink, but I'll buy something, So it's like, so crazy. But then I went to this one, said big display one. In some of the countries, here they have like little notices on the cigarette packages, like warning. There, these big, I took some pictures, big signs, warning, like this causes emphysema, this will kill you, this destroys your brain cells. But it's still right in the front because they sell so many of them. Anybody retail knows the things that sell a lot, you put in the front. The stuff that doesn't sell, you put in the back of the store. They're right in the front with these big designs. So people are obviously buying these things without understanding, well, it's intoxication. We talk about intoxication. What does it mean it's intoxication? What is that word? It's toxic. It's poisonous. I'm doing something the other day, reading the news online or something, like there's a picture of a woman with a shot, with a needle, and it was some new form of Botox or whatever. It was like, again, same thing, like toxic. So the world's a toxic place. It's described as a bad bargain. And, sometimes in harsh terms, do your business, get out. But how do we do that? In Bhakti, have a big house and have kirtan. Have kids and tell them about Krishna. Just like last night. Make pizza, but offer it to the Lord. And then, it was embarrassing. I was sitting next to a brahmachari who only had 2 pieces. I had at least 6. I told him before he started, I said, I'm not going to tell how many pieces you had as a brahmachari if you don't tell people how many I have as a grihasta. Because Krishna consciousness is like that, it's actually joyful. I was at the Chicago temple this morning, and they have beautiful acoustics in that temple room, beautiful. And just singing, I was thinking we're following people that describe when we actually awaken a little bit of Krishna consciousness, they say the taste of the name of Krishna is so sweet they want thousands of ears and thousands of mouths because they can't taste it enough. It's obviously a poetic allegory, analogy. But, that's their experience. So that's what we're aspiring for. And we talk about the negativities of this world because we want to make sure we don't cheat ourselves out of the positives of the spiritual experience. And the way we do that is described to, we have to give up our petty weakness of the heart, which is a little bit gradually, a little bit at a time, pull ourselves more closer to Krishna, more closest to spiritual sangha, avoid those things, avoid those people that pull us into a more materialistic perspective of life that kind of encourage us to do things that aren't really good for us, and associate and do things that are connected. Just like, I know from here, a lot of people go to New Vrindavan for vacations. So we don't say don't go on a vacation. We would never do that. We'd be very unpopular religion. We said no vacation. But spiritualize your vacation, We don't say, give up desires. We say spiritualize. I don't say, Krishna says, and Prabhupada and our Acharyas say, spiritualize our desires. We don't say no house, we spiritualize the house. No relationship, spiritualize the relationship. And those things become the source of pleasure, actually. If the roof leaks, it's all right, Krishna, it's your roof. I'll get it fixed for you. Right? That's the way we should think. Okay, Krishna, it's your roof. I'll get it fixed. As opposed to, this is my roof. I'm tired of spending money on fixing the roof. I want to go to the ball game. Right? But we're no, Krishna, you're in charge. Whatever you want, I'll do it for you. It's your stuff. It's your thing. It's a whole different mentality. And when we think like that, the happiness that comes, the distress that comes, the success that comes, the failure that comes, the youth that comes, the old age that comes, it's all in stride. Because it's hey, I'm just passing through. And if I got to go through more bumps, okay, it's a bumpy road. Less bumps, thank you, Krishna, for being less bumps. And that gives us enthusiasm to go on, and as Krishna describes here. And Prabhupada says that, if we become Krishna conscious, the whole world becomes Vaikuntha, right? Vaikuntha, no anxiety. And if you read the life of Prabhupada, so much anxiety. Imagine trying to teach a spiritual movement in New York, Lower East Side, to a bunch of hippies in the 1960s. No anxiety? I can't think of anything harder, right? The IRS is a breeze, So anyway, that's our goal. That's our aspiration. That's what Krishna says is actually our birthright. We just have to kind of endeavor gradually, step by step, through association, a little bit of sadhana, spiritual practice to get there, and it's guaranteed success. That's the fine print of bhakti. Guaranteed success. Guaranteed success. That's the fine print. It's Krishna, is there any connections here? Nope, guaranteed. But when I go to the spiritual world, when I want to be anybody else? Nope, you don't want to be anybody else. When I go to the spiritual world, if I'm a cowherd boy, am I got an issue with the cowherd girls because they spend more time with Krishna? Nope, everybody's happy. Everybody's completely free from envy and lust and greed. I read the other day prayers of Queen Kunti. Prabhu was saying that if we sometimes wonder how we're making advancement in spiritual life, he said it's very easy. Spiritual advancement means giving up envy, giving up jealousy. If we're free from jealousy and envy, we're spiritually advanced. He says it's not about, do you see Krishna and do you hear his flute? And okay, down the road. But the real thing is, are you becoming free from envy and jealousy? And we can see how, we're trying to make a little progress in that. So it's a very wonderful practice. So thank you. I realize there's a clock here. I should have watched it more. You fixed it today. Yes. Sorry. Yeah. We have any time for questions or comments or discussion or anything? Okay. She always has a question. I remember her. Yes, and she sat in the front, so I can't pretend I don't see her. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for coming back and pulling us out of whatever bubbles we have been living. Very inspiring.
That's what Sangha's for. Because you walk out the door and you're bombarded with everything else, you know. And then you come in this space with spiritually minded people and they remind us, wait, what's the real value? What's the real purpose? Where's the real happiness come from? It's a bit of a struggle war for our heart.
Yeah. The point that you had been bringing, Prabhu, dovetailing or spiritualizing our existence and our resources, everything. I'm finding it hard in my personal practice. In the beginning, it was okay. You know, spiritualize. Yeah, sure, you can have pizza, you can have big house and this and that, whatever. Use it in Krishna's service. But as you're describing, it just takes so much of time and energy.
What takes time?
Maintaining all that.
Our material things or our spiritual practice?
Material things.
Uh-huh.
And
good, you're learning. Congratulations.
So I'm trying to understand, at some point, I think we need to make some shift. I don't know if it's a conscious shift, while initially we have all these things and we meet the devotees and they say, hey, just chant one round, it's okay, you can do everything else that you're doing. And then as we start incorporating more and more spiritual practices, initially I think it was okay, but I don't know, I'm just struggling hard to go to the next level where we have to withdraw from these things, the so-called quote-unquote spiritualizing. Is that detachment happens naturally as the detachment to Krishna and the holy name happens?
Yeah, that's a very nice question. It reminds me, I've maybe told a story, well, this is short, but I was sitting in Mayapur. I mentioned I had a business, and Krishna just kind of arranged it. We expected a small business, and it got relatively bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger for 20 years. And then that was kind of like despite our desire. We want to stay small. We were just forced to get bigger and bigger and more profit, more money. And then it reached a point which we didn't want. Smaller, 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 finished. Either one, I didn't expect it, but we had to, So I was sitting in Mayapur, our world headquarters, at Lotus Feet of Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa-san, next to, sitting with some of the senior devotees sit and some sannyasis, and I leaned over to Prahlad Maharaj, who's a senior Prabhupada disciple sannyasi, and I said, Maharaj, how do you become detached? Because I'm watching it go boom, 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 right? And he gave me like a really wonderful Krishna conscious sannyasi answer. He said, oh, you don't have to worry about detachment. Krishna will take care of that. So I went back to chanting japa, like, okay, no warm and fuzzy answer there, right? So, yeah, you're right. I mean, at the same time, it is not required to, it's not a trick. Okay, you come and you have your nice house, you keep it for 2.5 years and then Krishna's going to take it away. Or, you're going to read a certain thing that says, kids are Maya. Or, that's not. No, everything is the property of Krishna. Everything's owned by Krishna. What we have to abandon is the mentality that I'm the enjoyer. And that's tough, like we were reading in Chicago yesterday about Indra, who's a very colorful figure. I don't know if it's the same guy, but it's the same problem. Canto after canto after canto. And with Narnarayan Rishi, he's had somehow observed Narnarayan Rishi's performing all these austerities. He must want to take my position as the king of heaven, and we see that, right? People worried about the upcoming political leaders and they got to crush them or do this or that. So, he does some whole thing to kind of trick Indra with, sends Cupid, to trick, Indra tries to trick Narnarayan Rishi, sends Indra with these beautiful celestial damsels, and And, Narayan is this manifest, like, beautiful women out of his own existence. And, Cupid gets the message, okay, we're outclassed here. He's got more power than we do. But it's an example of, yet again, another person in a very, very powerful position, but hanging on to thinking he's the enjoyer. So Krishna is with Indra repeatedly showing him, you've got a lot of power, but I'm going to show up and hold this mountain up for a few days just to let you know who's the boss. So the same way as devotees, gradually, it's like Prahlad Maharaj told me, like Krishna will take care of detachment. So gradually it's like, okay, because it's described some places in the Shastra that Krishna will award liberation very easily, or whoever gives liberation. That's easy. You want to be liberated, you want to merge, or whatever. Fine. But pure devotion, not so easy. Right? What's the reason given? Mataji knows. She knows so much more than I do. Yes, let's turn to the other way around. Because Krishna will be controlled, is controlled by the pure devotees. He's the Supreme Lord, the person controls control of everything, but he puts himself under the control of his devotees, like we just Damodar month, right, with Mother Yashoda. She ties them up. I mean, come on. Tie up God? Like, stay here? Like, because that's his personality. He becomes controlled by his pure devotees. So if we really, really, really want to, not just get out of suffering and we purify our karma and all that, but if we really want to become lovers of Krishna, then we have to give up everything else internally, not externally, internally. And that's not so easy because it's described. I don't remember these things, but the Shastra, I've been in it for a long time, and there's like deep-seated habits. But, that's why the mantra. This is the wrong crowd, but did any of you seen or grow up seen ever Wizard of Oz? Okay, few. Usually, like, folks that grew up in America, it's like, in my generation, Wizard of every year came on in February, whatever. So for the sake of them, okay? Wizard of Oz, okay, it's a whole make-believe story, famous like American mythology, Judy Garland, famous movie, first color movie ever made or something. Yeah, and half it was black and white, and halfway it switched to color. They made it right when the technology was coming out for color movies, so it switched, which worked well. If you know the movie, it worked well. They started right there with color. But the whole thing is, there's like witches and this and that, and at the end, somehow, like, kind of near the beginning of the movie, she gets these ruby red slippers from one of the dead bad witches. And then she goes through this whole thing with scarecrows and this whole long plot with wizards and everything. And then at the end, her only hope for getting out of this dilemma, this false world she's into, is there's a wizard that can maybe deliver her, but the wizard somehow pulls the wrong button and he floats off in his balloon and she's left. And then the good witch comes and says, well, Dorothy, you got those ruby red slippers. You've had them all along. You just have to believe in it. And she taps her feet 3 times and she tells them, they have a different mantra. Her mantra was, there's no place like home, which for her meant Kansas. For us, it's different, right? We have the same mantra, no place like home. I want to go home. I want to go back to Godhead. But she had the power all along, didn't she? So in the same way, there's an analogy for us as spirit souls. We have the power. We're not here because Krishna wanted us to come here, according to our theology. We're here because I wanted to come here. We don't stay here because Krishna wants us to stay here. He wants to get us out. And he keeps sending message after message after message after message. Every time you stub your toe, thank you, Krishna. The other day I went to the temple. I live in D.C. Went to the temple, and the devotee in charge of the mail, Giri Govardhan, he said, Prabhu, there's some mail for the communication ministry. I thought, I forgot, I got to check this now and then, because once in a while they did look to the wrong place. So there was an envelope there with a check, and it was like, wow, that's good. Then the next one was a letter from the IRS. Thank you, Krishna. Sukha dukkha. Don't get attached. It's not like every time I come to the office there's going to be a check, but there's not also going to be a letter from the IRS every time, isn't it? So The mantra, there's no place like home. There's no place like. We have the power. We have the power. Krishna's in His name, and when we chant Krishna's name, it has profoundly purifying effects upon us. And things that we thought we could never overcome, that would always be distraction, it's described, they shrink into the amount of water in the hoofprint of a calf. Those are analogies given by the great acharyas. So, don't stop. Don't lose faith. Keep going. Understand that ultimately, Krishna, I'm your servant. You want to keep me here for 100 lifetimes? Okay. You want it to be rough? That's okay. You want me to wake in love in 24 hours? That's okay. Because what? I'm your servant. And when we really come to the platform, I'm your servant, poof. I described, was it Kulashekar Maharaj? Krishna's, let me die now so I can think of you. In a moment, I can be Krishna conscious. And then we have the examples of Kunti. Who suffered more in all of history than Kunti? Right? Her husband was died by some bizarre curse. She's got to raise her son in the house of evil cousins who just want to destroy them. And then they get banished, and then her sons get banished even longer. So many murderous plots. Her grandson gets killed in a horrendous abuse of dharma in the middle of the battlefield. Her other grandsons get killed at the end of the war. When the war is over, they get murdered. Hellish. And then she sees Krishna. Let it happen again and again and again. What's going on there? That is transcendental to what we think and experience in this world. We just think, dear God, give me my daily bread and don't make me suffer. Isn't it? But, how is it that because they got a whole different reality? It's I don't care if the bus is crowded. I know where I'm going. So keep in mind, I know where I'm going. Tom Hopkins, who's one of the first scholars to study ISKCON, he passed away a couple of years ago, and he gave a presentation at Harvard University, 50th anniversary. And at the end of his talk, he gave two talks. At the end of one of his talks, he said, so much advice as a scholar, he said, and there's one other thing. He said this bhakti thing. He said, this is a scholar, mundane guy, right? Okay? He says, stick with this bhakti. It'll get you there. That was his last words. He lived a year later. It was his last public words at that conference. So it's special. So stick with the bhakti. It'll get you there. Don't worry. Be patient. Okay?
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I don't have a question as such, but I wanted to say...
I have a question. Who's your tailor?
I don't know.
Next time I go to India, I want to go to that shop.
So one thing I want to confess here, anything and every single thing we do for ISKCON is all because of my wife. She takes time off to prepare for
here?
things.
Where is she?
That's my wife, Sabita.
Hare Krishna.
And anything
You should get a tape recorder for this, Mataji. He's not going to tell you this every day. Keep going. Keep going. This is beautiful.
I've been taking credit for this thing for years, and I think it's enough. I don't even deserve 1% of what she does. So the whole credit goes to her, and it's with so much of conviction she does it. And she grew up in a family, like two generation down. I think they are somehow related to Nadia in West Bengal. I think Nitai Prabhu or Nitai Gaurang, both actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they both have been to their family temple. So when they go from Nadia to Puri, so they would stop by that family temple, a small temple. So, and when she grew up, she would get up early in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, she would go and get the flower and make the malas and stuff. So every Saturday we go to the temple because of her. She would drag all of us out, even the kids, do the last one to come out of the house. But
where's the kids? Are your kids here? Yeah, you didn't drag them upstairs this time.
So this is, just wanted to say it loud and clear. It's not me. It's just her. Everything she does, and she does it so wholeheartedly, with so much pure devotion and conviction. So thank you.
I didn't realize it was Valentine's Day. That was nice. No, actually, we have. I think it's a little bit of a problem in this country. Too often we thank the man. You know, we don't. It's we should try not to do that. And even sociologists, again, they know that the women in the family and the mothers are the most powerful influencers, especially a lot of things, but especially religion. There's a wonderful book written by a sociologist whose name I forget right now, called The Rise of Christianity. And he documents the whole history. And the subtitle is like How an Obscure Middle Eastern Sect Became the World Religion in 3 Centuries. There's several points he makes. One of the main points he makes is that the role of Christian women. And he talks about sociologically, they know that usually, in most of the time, if the child follows the religion of the most devout parent, and usually it's the wife, not always, but usually it's the wife. So if the women are, in our case, Krishna conscious, the kids become Krishna conscious. The husband usually kind of goes along, right? So you get the woman, then you get the husband, and you get the 2 kids, the 3 kids, whatever. And sometimes we minimize that. And of course, spiritually, it's, so many powerful women, but just sociologically as well, the role of women is extremely important in any community, but in the spiritual community, they have this extra special role. So thank you very much for that. That's nice. Every guy in the place is going to have his wife on the way home. So you never told me that publicly in front of her. So, okay, guys, be warned, okay? You better say something on the way home, or you're going to be in big trouble. Yeah. No, it's true, though. Thank you. Nice. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so very much.
You forgot to talk about the importance of the roles of grandmothers. This is our collective grandmother.
Prabhu, we are so happy to have you, first of all. Just to say that. You started mentioning something about the Buddhism and their way of thinking, and then you finally made the point that it is bhakti. Bhakti is the process, it will take you there. And then you brought up Queen Kunti's, the whole scenario, and Krishna doesn't give bhakti that easily because he is subservient to the real devotees. So if I'm correct that, if I'm not sure, I'm phrasing this properly. My understanding is that the Buddhism came at a point where Hinduism, there was kind of killing of animals which became uncontrolled, and at that point Buddhism came into existence, and then Buddhism flourished, and then again our acharyas came into
Shankaracharya in particular.
Shankaracharya came, and then others came, and
Buddhism went to other parts of the world.
And then we became back again personalist worshipping of the Supreme Lord. Hopefully we are not going back to killing animals, But of late, recently, I saw some devotee writing something about his experience in this practice of bhakti, that he was finding it so very, I guess his faith is pretty much shaken, because even though, we have our own philosophical explanation about be patient and you will reach there, this person was really questioning about how am I even, every single aspect of our philosophy he was questioning, because maybe the faith is shaken, maybe that's the reason, but still the point is that it is, even though we put it in a very simple way, you just continue practicing and then you are going to reach there one of these days. And he was saying, like, I don't even know, if this is right and if that is right. And I can see clearly that it's not that simple as we hear. You just practice and then you
Well,
become.
Prabhu says the process is simple, but the application is difficult.
Correct. And so so this person's question is, even if I practice, I'm trying to be patient, but I don't know when I'm ever going to reach there. Or the answer is, okay, you have to do what you have to do. But still, it seems like kind of, we came around like a 360 degrees from Hinduism to Buddhism to whatever else, and then back here to personal worship of the Lord. And we try to make it as though it is simple for the simple, but it becomes extremely complicated for people whose faith is shaken. So even though we say it is simple, it's really not simple, right?
It's really simple.
It is simple.
It's very simple. And we make it complicated.
Okay.
But in part, one piece, answer your question. Many devotees have that experience. When you first come, you get this initial special mercy. The deities or the holy name or the devotees or prasadam. I think, I've never read this, but I think from what I've heard from a lot of people, that, it's like, it's a little special mercy from Krishna. Like, it's like I don't want to say it's a teaser, because that's to kind of entice you to do something that maybe is not so good, but it's a little extra mercy. Well, no, there isn't. It is there in Shastra. Actually, I take that back. It is in Shastra. Narada Muni was told, you should go and worship the Lord. And we know the whole story. His mother died, and he's 5 years old, like Dhruva, and he goes to the forest to meditate. And he sits down to meditate, and Vishnu appears. He sees the Lord in his meditation. And then he's so overwhelmed by ecstasy of this vision, it breaks his meditation. He just can't maintain. So then he sits down again to meditate, thinking, I saw God because I meditated. But nothing happens. And then Krishna speaks to him, and he says these words, it's not a quote, paraphrase, you're not actually worthy to see me. You're not sufficiently purified. And this he says exactly, I regret to inform you, if I remember right, isn't it? It's like, very polite, Lord, thank you, I regret to inform you, you won't see me again in this life. And not only that, you won't hear me again. But if you continue on in this process, at the end of the life, be purified and you'll come back to me. So he tells him that, like special. So in the same way, I think Krishna, maybe not so directly with us, but you get some special thing. You walk in the door and it's like you smell the incense, like, wow, this is different than the incense at home, or it's certainly different than the smoke-filled bathrooms at the office or whatever. Or, you pick up the book and it's like, oh my gosh, this is profound. Nobody's ever talked like this before. Nobody ever showed it for me, or so many things. But then, so that gives us that initial kind of surcharge. But then the work has to start. So sometimes Krishna showed, like when Narada said, you're not really worthy. I gave you you got a preview. Now you got to pay for the movie, right? Previews are free usually, right? Okay, movies are not, unless you don't do that where you cheat. No, don't do it, you pay for the money. So you get like a special preview. And sometimes, it is a fact, we go through a period, just like the clouds, right? The sun comes out, then the clouds come out. The sun comes out, the clouds come out. So Krishna never says, I guess there's a country music song, I beg your pardon, I never promised you a rose garden. Right? It's like a love song, but we can bring it into Christian consciousness. Krishna tells Arjuna, I never said it's going to be easy. But I just told you I'd take care of you. But it's going to be tough. And even with Arjuna, when you read the Mahabharata, there was at least one or two or three other times he forgot everything, more or less. And it was like, he's ready to quit all over again. Krishna's like, whoa, remember we talked about 13 days ago? Wake up. So it's the same way for us. Sometimes it's like, the sun comes out. It's like, wow, how can anybody not practice Krishna consciousness? It's so obvious. And these other things that I'm disturbed by, they're so inconsequential. And other days it's like, Krishna, are you there? Are you real? You know, and all the people that I thought are spiritually inspiring me, they're like really a pain in the neck today, and you know, whatever, right? And it's like that. So those are like the tests and challenges, and it fits right into it. It's not like, oh my gosh, this is something that's not explained by Krishna. It's like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what Krishna says is going to happen, right? So these days you got GPS, you just listen, turn left, turn right. But you know, back in the days of maps, people would tell you like drive 2 miles and you're going to come across the Sunoco station. Okay, Sunoco station. Okay, builds a little faith. Turn right, you're going to go 1.5 miles, turn left to the Kmart. Oh, okay, there's a Kmart. You build some faith because of the practice. So the same way we build some faith because of the practice. So we give up a few things that maybe were our habits, but they weren't so hard to give up. And then you just like, oh, well, that was good. That worked. And Premanand, to answer your question, I think it's important for us to think that there's a lot of things could be said. You said their faith is shaken. Sometimes that happens because this is not a nice world. Sometimes really, really, really bad things happen to really, really nice people. And some of those, it's hard to understand why. Sometimes we can't understand why. It's easy to say, well, it's karma, but that's easy to say until it happens to me. I don't want to hear it, right? Because sometimes it's too painful. And then, of course, there's answers much deeper than that. It's not that every bad thing is completely my fault at all. But I think in a real practical way, we just have to ask ourselves, I mean, forgive me, this is sacrilegious. I mean, there's a skylight. Lightning can come through there really easily. There's no roof in the way. But even if there's no Krishna, even if the Bhagavad Gita is just one of the book, even if there's nothing spiritual in life, I would much rather hang out with you than the people at the bar, right? I would much rather live on the premise that I can live purely, that I can try to be a nice person, that I cannot kill animals just because I like the taste of their blood. You know, I'd rather live like that. That I don't want to take toxic substances into my body that cause me to see other people as objects of exploitation. That I don't want to enter into relationships illusioning myself that this lump of flesh can gratify my inner heart, and that my lump of flesh can gratify their inner heart, or that my money can purchase what I need. You know, all these. I don't want to live like that. And I think that's kind of a commitment that we need to make. That, you know, it's described. It's a leap of faith. Practicing is a leap of faith, but you know, you chant and you get an experience, and you eat prasadam and you get an experience. Associate with devotees, you get experience. And slowly, just all start, the pieces, the puzzles start like, wow, pretty spectacular. And on those deep, dark days, we should think, what's the choice? Do I want to live like that? I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to kill animals anymore. I don't want to think about people as objects of sensual exploitation. I don't want to join a political party if the whole purpose is just to try to control the world. I don't want to walk around thinking that my nation or my religion or my race or my caste or my color is better than anybody else. I'm tired of that. I don't want to live like that. I'd rather live for a beautiful theory than a false exploitation.
Yeah, interesting you are bringing that up, because this person chose to stay with the devotees rather than just move it completely in the opposite direction, which is really Krishna's.
Yeah, and sometimes we make a mistake.
Yeah.
We see this. Sometimes people, I'm sure this community's been around long enough. Sometimes people even have some kind of leadership role, and they go away for a while. It's just like, hey, whatever happened to so-and-so? I haven't seen them in a few days, weeks, months, years. Well, they're just out there doing their independent thing. They're just a spirit soul checking out the material energy again. And they made certain progress in Krishna consciousness, and it was like, well, that sounds nice, but, you know, I haven't tried this yet, you know, and you can go try it. And then you realize, okay, that wasn't what it was cut out to be. And then you come back to Krishna. It's just a natural process. There's nothing it shouldn't bother us. It shouldn't be like we lose our faith because some sannyasi, even a guru, you know, senior Prabhupada disciple, whatever, gets a little bewildered, goes out to material energy again. That should make us be more convinced of the philosophy. Wow, just see how powerful Maya is. I better be careful.
I'm sorry to, I asked the last question, maybe I should not have. Maybe others have questions, but It is 2:00 and 2:30 we have the ops meeting at the temple.
At the how far are we from the temple?
Yes, we will reach there in 15 minutes, but
10
10
okay.
minutes.
Okay.
I'm
sure a
sorry
lot
to-
of people in the room are thinking, thank goodness she stood up and said time's up. Thank you. You just made more friends, Premananda. So thank you all for your patience.
But I think anybody, you all can come to the temple and ask the question in the evening. Prabhu is there giving Sunday feast class, and after that, you can meet Prabhu at the conference room. And I hope that's okay with everybody. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.